What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. We've got a very cool guest joining us from Costa Rica. If you cannot see the beautiful landscape behind her, sit back, relax, because she is all things podcasting and digital content creation. She is the founder and CEO of HeartCast Media, which is a full-service podcast production studio and content creation lab. Please welcome Molly Ruland to the show. Molly, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm excited too, because you're all about the podcasting community, and so am I. So I'm excited for this conversation to hopefully learn something from you, share some wisdom with the audience, since they're obviously here for a reason. So how you said before we started recording, you said you've been doing this for like 20 years. So when did you incorporate the podcasting into the digital content creation side of your business?
We started podcasting as a service offering in 2016. So, if you say I'm an early adopter to a OG podcaster, they would laugh, right? But as far as the market is concerned and industry trends and podcasting becoming more mainstream and used as a business development tool, we were a little ahead of the curve. We were also doing these amazing live stream performances, but nobody was home. I was about 4 years too early on that one. The pandemic would have been a better time for live streaming, but we've been focused on that podcasting in audio and video format, and really as a business development tool.
Yeah, no, I really think that the podcasting space is just getting started. So I started mine in 2019, and when I got an article, I wrapped up my fashion design career because that just wasn't for me. And I'm like, what's next? And I got an article on how to start one. And I'm like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to start a podcast, and it just from there, I've just kind of immersed myself in the community and just growing my show, evolving things, and just learning how to be better and better. And I've really just loved being a part of it. And just everybody I've met, such as yourself and my guests and, any other hosts, it's just so real and authentic, I feel like.
Agreed. There's two sides of the podcast industry. There's the money-making side and business development tool side of things. And then there's the podcaster community of people who just have passion projects. And they're both great spaces. They're both warm and welcoming, but especially the communities of people. I mean, you go to these podcast conventions, people really want to know what your podcast is about and actually want to listen to it and are so supportive and happy to help. And it's really nice. It's a really nice change of people being supportive and happy and kind to each other. So yeah, I think from business all the way down to the people, I really do love the industry.
Yeah. So what do you think? So from your point of view, as someone that has a podcast production studio, what do you think? Why do you think it's important for from a business standpoint for someone to have a podcast?
I love your dog. Mine can't climb yet. That's the only reason why they're not in the shot. Well, because what it does is it creates a relationship. It creates a strategic relationship if you're intentional about it, but it creates a relationship. And if you're good at podcasting and you research the guests and you introduce them and you show that you really care, right? You can you create a relationship. There's synergy there, and they're going to throw you business, right? Even if it's something that you don't do, if you do a great job, they're going to say, hey, do you do this? Or do you know something? They're going to constantly look for opportunities to support you back if you've clearly supported them. So if you take that angle from it just being a great podcast and a great conversation to listen to and pivot it to something as a marketing tool and a business development tool, then if you do the monthly podcast, that's 12 new relationships that you can form with people you want to do business with. So maybe it's you want to do business with them, or maybe you want to be seen as a thought leader. So you interview other people who are seen as thought leaders, or maybe it's client retention, maybe it's client acquisition, right? Maybe you want to be famous on TikTok, right? There's a whole lot of different reasons why somebody, could start this. But, in the days of conventions, they're terrible for the environment when you think about how much is wasted, people flying, hotels, all that packaging, all those trade show booths that nobody really cares about. And you spend so much money on and so much money shipping it there. Or you could invest in a highly produced very attractive, very effective, intentional podcast and get in front of those same decision makers without leaving your seat. Get a microphone, get a good light, be a good interviewer, and be really intentional about who you're interviewing versus just like telling stories, right? And so like really niching down. And so with branded podcasts, right? That's what, that's kind of the loose term for it. The guest is almost more important than the audience.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right? Yeah. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean? It's like, listen, the audience will come. And like, sometimes it's about establishing the relationship between you and that person. Or if you have 50 listeners, if you have 50 downloads a week, people think that's terrible. But if there was 50 people waiting to talk to me in a conference room every Monday, I would think I was queen of the earth. Are you kidding me? 50 people of people who are willing to listen to me, like can't wait to hear what I say next. That's gold, right? So, and with a branded podcast, you don't need 1 million downloads. Like you could have 50 downloads a week, but you might get a $10 million contract, right? Because if you've got a $10 million contract to award, aren't you going to give it to the people who are so passionate about their craft that they even have a podcast, right? So there's so many advantages, but it really boils down to the community and people. It's personal. People have gotten used to hearing your voice. They look forward to hearing your voice. They love your personality or your sense of humor, right? Like it's always personal. So whether it's a business relationship or a listener relationship, it's to me, I'm big on like the democratization of information. I'm a burn it all to the ground kind of girl. And I love the fact I am, what can I say? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I believe half of everything, And so I just love this idea of this free communication. Like I've always been obsessed with like pirate radio, right? And so it's kind of natural that I shifted into podcasting because it's uncensored. Yeah. And of course the pendulum swings in different, sometimes you're like, I wish somebody would censor those guys, but love it. What a beautiful thing to be able to send a message. I mean, you're going to edit this and shoot it out to the world if they care to listen to in a few days.
It goes out there forever.
And that's awesome. I think that's just the rebel in me. I think that's awesome. And then if you can really dial in on community and building relationships, personal or business, and I think that's great.
So I'm on the other side. So my business is the podcast, and I look at it as a business, and I've slowly grown it, but I don't have I am a head coach. I am the head coach for the female podcasters group, but that's not like anything we're slowly growing. It's not a big thing yet. But I've just really enjoyed forging those relationships and connecting people, like just constantly connecting other people. I've probably got like 100 introductions to make right now because of all the different people I've talked to, and to further build that community and forge those relationships. So what would you say? So you already said it, like on the business side, what would you say for someone like me? So I'd probably be considered more of a thought leader, I would say. Creating a culture around my podcast and my community, and just trying to make a positive impact and provide, wisdom and resources to my audience. So what would you say for someone like me that's more in the society and culture side of things, where I am trying to be a leader with my message that I'm putting out there?
Well, I would say if you're somebody with a message, then the goal is always going to be to get in front of as many people as possible. And so the podcast is a really great launch pad for you to do other things, like do public speaking, or, speak at a retreat, or do a mastermind, or other things. So I think for you, the real key there is figuring out what your CTA, what is your, conversion metric, right? So out of this podcast, outside of talking to people and getting these connections and doing all these things, right? And I'm sure that's like revenue generating in like other ways, right? Connections, whatever, right? Like all this, collateral benefits of podcasting, right? But then ultimately, what does it lead to? Do you want to get paid to travel the world and reach more people with this message and take everything you've learned from this? Do you want to be like Tim Ferriss, who took like snippets of all these interviews and condensed them down into Cliff Notes and then turn it into Tools of Titans or Tribe of Mentors, right? Like that's what he did. He did a podcast for 5 years, and then he just literally shrunk everything down into like 20-minute segments and wrote a book out of it, right? So for you, it's like, well, what is it really you want to do, right? So I think it boils down to like, what does your perfect day look like? I think this is something that like as women, we don't think enough about. Like, what do you actually want your life to look like? What time do you wake up? Is it cold? Is it dark? Is it light? Are you at the beach? Do you hear birds out. Like, what do do you want to lay in bed and like look at bad memes for an hour? Like, what is your perfect day? And then how do you engineer a life, reverse engineer a life that actually matches up with that? And because we get caught up a lot of times in, well, I have kids or I have responsibilities or I couldn't leave or my mom or whatever. But like at the end of the day, you can create any life that you want. It's just going to be harder to do it if you have a lot of those limitations, but still not impossible. I think the pandemic has showed us that anything is possible in good and very bad ways, right? So
yeah, true.
And so it just boiled, what do you want to do? For me, I want to travel the world and get paid to do it. And so I am building my personal brand, my personal profile as somebody who does public speaking and like one-on-one coaching. And I'd love to do masterminds and retreats. And so that's what I am leading to. And I could see that for you as well. So you just got to make sure that in the end of your show notes that it has a clear CTA. Hey, to get on my retreat list to do this, to book me, your website should say to book me to speak at your next event, to do, like, you have to really lead people to the conclusion you want.
Sure. That's great. Really great advice. Thank you for that. So you guys hear that?
That's right.
What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Can we get a round of applause today? Woo! Today I'm excited to announce Manscaped launched their Ultra Premium Collection. Believe it or not, it's for your not so private parts. I'm talking about a leveled up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. And let me tell you something. Oh, it smells so good. My man wears this every day. This is an all-in-one skin and hair care kit for the everyday man and covers you from head to toe. Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com and use the code LABELFREE20 for 20% off and free shipping. And enjoy. So with us both being in the podcasting space, I feel like it's just getting started. So where do you think that the podcasting world is going?
Well, it's going a little bit mad, to be honest, because there's a bunch of like unchecked white dudes at the top of the food pyramid right now. I mean, that's just what it is. Like we're just getting IAB certifications under wraps, and what numbers are real and what ones aren't, and who's buying who. And Spotify spent $10 billion on buying companies, and it's getting a little murky, right? Because there's a ton of money in the data and all the programmatic ads. There's so much money, like Anchor popping off and being free, and they collected gajillion. I'm making sure to emphasize fake words. People, I'm not actually quoting numbers, but they got a bunch of people to sign up, got bought by Spotify less than 2 years later, and they 90% of podcasts on Anchor don't have more than one episode. So all that was data mining. They just wanted all the data of all the people that actually signed up on Anchor, and then Spotify bought them and rolled them into their data log, right? So this is a very like rookie way of summarizing this, but there's a lot of potentially nefarious things going on with data because the RSS feeds aren't necessarily encrypted and so. However, the democratization of information is a wonderfully powerful thing. And so it has the opportunity to go in a lot of different directions. And I do think that like more communities of color have a little bit more representation. More stories are being told. It's kind of like the documentaries on Netflix, how so many people are learning things about, some of it's a little kooky, but, some of it is very educational. So.
True. I try to tell some of my clients, like a lot of these podcasts that are out there, a lot of them they're not even releasing episodes anymore. It would be nice if they could do a big data clean, but they probably never will. Do you think that will ever happen?
No, because they go to their advertisers or their potential buyers and they go, Spotify, we got 17 gajillion users on our platform. Like, they're not going to scrub those. They get paid. It's kind of like, those clickbait articles that make you like go to every single page. They just want to say that on average users go to 18 pages. Well, that's because you broke up that stupid article into 18 pages. It's manufactured data, so they're never going to clean it.
It's just like falsifying your financials. Mm-hmm. I didn't say that, did I? No. Anyway. So let's talk about HeartCast Media. So when did you start that?
I started HeartCast Media in October of 2018.
Okay. And so prior to
Yeah.
that, though, you just did digital content creation, or
So I owned another company that was a multimedia experiential agency. I managed 160 artists. We did
oh wow,
bookings. We created events. It was based out of Washington, D.C. Had a 3-story building, recording studio, podcast studio, live music stage,
Ew.
recorded bands. I did a little bit of everything. And it was
Girl.
wildly successful from the outside in. But from the inside out, it was killing me. And it definitely, that's a whole other story, but it just wasn't working. And so I closed the company down after 19 years. I Marie Kondoed my life. I reverse Oprah'd my life and said, you got to go and you got to go. And I'm not responsible for anybody,
Yeah, yeah,
and then built a business that was reminiscent of all the mistakes I made to avoid those, and really just dialed in on the parts of the industry and my job that I really love, being behind the scene, being an aesthetic director, having that brand strategy, long-term vision. Here's your game plan, broad strokes kind of a girl. And so I just dialed in on that, and I changed my audience to businesses and brands and government agencies and people that could pay us versus like
yeah.
indie underground hyper local artists, right? And had a business partner who lasted about 2 months, and she was really the business expert. And then she left, and I had to figure it out on my own. So I've
Oh
spent the
wow.
last 3.5 years reading a book a week on business and personal development, and implemented it and grew the business 200%. And we're on track to do $1 million in 2023. And so now I'm just really excited about like sharing that and implementing these things, inside HeartCast Media to really serve our clients. I can give you a great marketing strategy because I've been doing this for 22 years. I'm not like, I don't own a chiropractor business and then have a podcast agency on the side. Like this is what I've been living and loving for most of my adult life.
Yeah, yeah. Now, marketing, I feel, is very key to anything that you do these days, and it's so easy to do to get your message out there with social media. So, can you tell us, like, kind of like what your process looks like for your clients and the types of clients that you work with?
The first thing we always do is like a discovery session and onboarding, because we were really focused on just producing podcasts for people, but it's really expanded out into digital content. So we do panel discussions, we do audiobooks, we build websites. So personal branding, strategy, all of that. So the first thing is, and we also work really well with founders who are either looking to raise money and need to go on other podcasts because we do podcast booking, or founders that just got funding and now need to create a logo and a website and a brand and don't really know where to start. That's kind of like, those are our favorite clients to work with.
Sure.
But it really just starts with, what is the goalpost, right? Like there's no like, black and white answer. It's like, I got to sit with you and find out, what is your goal? What is the field, what does that look like?
Yeah,
And then we can figure out how to reverse engineer that instead of, because it's so easy in today's society. Just go, do the next thing. Oh, I got to do reels. Shit, I got to be on TikTok. Da, 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 da.
yeah. It's a lot.
You're just doing whatever's coming next. And then you look back at the end of the year and you're like, what happened? I don't even,
That's me. I'm like, what the fuck? Where'd my day go?
That's everyone though, right? Because
Yeah,
you're like on you're on that hamster wheel. And so
yeah,
just having somebody else, right? Like this, the quote is, you can't read the label from inside the jar. And
yeah.
so I'm really good at like, let me just give you some third party perspective and then a game plan out of this,
And now, do you work with them? Are there packages that you offer? So, if somebody wanted just digital, just content creation, would you do that, or is it all inclusive?
No, it's kind of a la carte. Like if you need a logo and a website and all that, we can do that. If you just want a podcast, we can do that. If you want to just go on other people's podcasts,
Yeah,
So a lot of times what we found with our podcast clients is 6 months in, they're like, oh, you do websites too? I need one of those. So it's just is kind of naturally expanded. So we love working with clients who are like, I'm just getting started. I need everything and I want it in one
oh,
place.
sure. Yeah,
Then that's like really great, to just like
yeah,
all the fonts match, all the colors match,
yes,
everything, you just
yeah,
knock it out. But we're happy to jump in wherever because everybody's got different goals. But
yeah.
I think really what makes us different is what I'm bringing to the table and that onboarding session. I usually pull stuff out of people that they didn't even realize, and it like shifts their whole perspective, and they're like, you're right, I don't actually want to do that, I want to do this is why it wasn't jiving with me. Well,
Yeah.
if something's not really resonating and you're like having a hard time doing it, it's because it's not what you're supposed to do. It's like your body's letting you know this ain't it, so sometimes you just need somebody else to be like, yeah. That ain't it.
Where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more about HeartCast Media?
Well, heartcastmedia.com is the website. And then personally, mollyruland.com is my other site if people want to do a discovery call or one-on-one coaching with me. And then HeartCast Media is kind of the engine that fulfills all of the services that you might need or you discovered that you needed through coaching with me.
Awesome. You guys, I'm going to put all those links in the show notes, so don't hesitate to reach out to Molly if you connected with her, think you want to work with her, because she is obviously a very cool chick. She knows her stuff and very passionate about what she does. So definitely go click those links and check her out. I have a question for you before we start wrapping things up. Where are you traveling to next?
Ooh, that's a good question. We have a trip to Ireland on the docket, but Greece and Portugal. Ireland, Greece, and Portugal. Those are the top three. So a couple girlfriends of mine and a guy friend of mine, we're renting a house in Santorini, Greece.
Beautiful.
On the side of a cliff for a month, and we're all going to write a book while we're there. So that's the next.
Oh, that's very cool. I love it.
I don't know if the book will be any good, but it doesn't matter.
All right. Before we say goodbye, any last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to leave with the audience?
Anything is possible. Anything is possible, good or bad. I was kind of going through it recently, and my dad said to me, things aren't always as good or as bad as they seem. And I was like, man, that's kind of sucks. But you know what? You're right. And just, anything is possible. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed right now. You're scrolling on I made a mistake of reading the news this morning. My blood pressure went through the roof. I'm like, no, it's 4:30. I can't do this, right? Yeah. And so if you're feeling trapped and overwhelmed by everything that is in the world today, just remember anything is possible, right? And people look at me and they go, oh, you're so brave moving to Costa Rica. It's not bravery, man. I just did it. I just did it. You just got to do it sometimes, man. That's it. You just got to do it. It's not about being brave. It's about learning to be cool with things being different. It's not bravery.
Oh, I like that. Learning to be cool with things being different. That you should make that like a t-shirt.
Yeah. Anything is possible, right? Like,
I love it. Well, Molly, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story, your thoughts on where podcasting is heading and everything that you do. Very excited to see what's next for you. So keep us posted. So we'd like to we'll get back and give everybody an update. So thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.